Stages in the development of the field. Let us look at some other opinions about what were the different historical stages in the development of the comparative education. And we will now discuss what Noe and Exton, 1969, say about it. So, according to Noe and Exton, there are 5 stages through which the development of comparative education took place. The first stage was the stage of travelers' tales. The second stage was, like Beredes, they talk about borrowing. The third stage was understanding cultural context. Fourth was factors shaping education. And fifth stage was talking about is the stage when comparative education it got its advantage from the empirical development of social sciences and social sciences methods. Travelers' tales. Noe and Exton say that this whole field of comparative education actually evolved from travelers' tales. So you had people like Marco Polo, your people like Matthew Arnold, who traveled a lot in different countries, and when they came back, they brought with them stories of how different educational contexts and how children were educated in different countries and in different ways. And that information was the beginning of the field of comparative education, because people began to compare them with what they were doing in education. The second aspect was, the second stage was the stage of borrowing, which also Berete 1964 talks about. So this again, they agree, began somewhere in 19th and 20th century, somewhere in the 19th and 20th century. And a figure which is very important over here, for instance, was Horace. He was secretary of the Board of Education in U.S. in 1848. He studied education in Perugia, France, and England. So this was the first study of its kind that was undertaken at an official level, in which the system of 3 different countries was looked at, and he tried to bring in those reforms from there. Taking example from there, he tried to bring in aspects of the education in these 3 countries to US. So Horace, till today, is known as the father of public education in the US. We have other examples, several of them, in which reforms from Prussian education were brought to the Tsarist Russia. This is very problematic because, as you would know, that it is not easy to transplant what is happening in educational system or उसमें जो भी इसके processes हैं and simply transplant them for Pakistan or to bring it to your own country, because your own cultural context is different. Although it is problematic, you would see, sadly, it does continue even today. The fourth stage was which Sadler brought attention to, and this was a stage when there was a discussion that we need not just to bring in whatever practices in education were taking place in other countries, but actually understand what are the social factors that lead to the shaping of those educational contexts. And we need also to understand what are the broader national ideologies under which those education contexts are nested. What are the political exigencies, or what are the political issues or concerns that have led to shaping of the education. And also people became interested in knowing that how is education related to the market. So we can see over here that the stages in the development of the field can be seen as: number 1, the stage 1 is travelers' tales. Stage 2 is educational borrowing. The stage 3 is focus on understanding, and stage 4 is explanation of factors that are shaping education and how education is related to society. The fifth stage in the development of the field of comparative education was the empirical social sciences field, which I intentionally left out because this somehow applies to all the other four stages. However, this was a stage in which people began to pay attention more to methods. By empirical social sciences, I mean social sciences like economics, the social sciences that deal with more of gathering of quantitative data. Because once people started to think and have a clear understanding of how comparative educational studies could enable them to take certain policy decisions in their own country, they started to question more and more about the rigor of the methodology that was used. And what social sciences did was that how comparative education sort of took advantage of social sciences was that it started to look at the different disciplines under the social sciences and use their empirical methods to collect data in the comparative mode. और इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा there was a focus on quantitative data analysis because that was easier to compare across the countries.